All right, welcome back to another episode of EventHubs Talking Block. I am John Catalyst Green. With me as always is John Velociraptor Guerrero.
Oh man, we've got a lot hustling bustling going on today in the world of Street Fighter specifically. John and I just came back from Capcom Cup. We'll talk about that a little bit. But of course, the biggest thing that's going on right now is that a balance patch, the first ever balance patch for Street Fighter 6 has been released. We have the patch notes, and I think we're going to jump right into talking about the biggest losers and the biggest winners of this balance patch. Now, also I should say, it's not a character-wide balance patch. It is not the yearly update that we all know and are expecting. This is a bonus. This is a change. Only 13 characters even appear on this. Some of them have almost throwaway changes, just little quality of life for bugs, but some of them have been attended to heavily. So let's jump into it. John, who do you want to put under the microscope first?
Talking about losers, we have to start with JP. Oh my gosh, they hit him hard. John, what are your initial impressions, like reading over the list? What do you think about what they did to him?
Look how they massacred my boy.
They listened to the fear online about JP, and you know what, guys? Congratulations, you've got what you asked for. I'm not going to say that anything drastic like he's no longer a character or anything like that. He can still do what JP did. But they've nerfed him in ways that, a couple of different ways. And again, this is a patch where each character gets one, maybe two changes. JP's got this huge box. I'm looking at the EventHubs list of changes right now. It's a huge box next to his name and picture of the things that they went after. I think the most important one, and the one that everyone was talking about the most, was of course OD Amnesia. We've talked about that quite a lot on this channel. It has been a very frustrating move for a lot of people. It functions unlike any other kind of counter that has ever existed in Street Fighter before, and they went in hard. They adjusted the damage scaling from 15%. Now it goes up to 60. It is not a move that you're going to get a ton of damage out of anymore. Now, you can tag a level 3 onto the end of it, and that'll still be noteworthy, but the kind of damage output that we were seeing from it before, that's gone from 15% scaling to 60.
Yeah, nearly half of the damage that people were getting off of there is gone. Almost half is gone. That is just, it is a night and day difference, because he was getting like, what, 65% damage combos we would see off like those throw reversals and stuff like that. This is just, we can't highlight and underline how gigantic
think it was
of a nerf.
65%. I think it was
it's nearly, it was 45%. It was, well, I mean, there were some of the combos online that he would do like 65% of your health off of OD Amnesia. Like it was about a back throw in the corner and stuff. It was crazy.
What this tells me is that this is intended to be a utility move. It's not intended to be a damage stealer. So you're going to get some damage out of OD Amnesia now, but for the most part, it's going to get you out of situations, and that's something in this game. But it's a risky get out, man, because you're spending 2 bars off the bat, and you're putting yourself in a punish counter state, so you risk a lot if OD Amnesia doesn't go well, and now the payoffs are much less. I think that this is going to lead to just less amnesia, which may be a good thing, because as a JP player, I felt like this move killed me as much or more than it killed my opponents. Maybe that's my decision as to when to use it. Maybe I'm not the greatest at that, but man, the risk on this move is very high. That remains, but now the payoffs have been nerfed substantially. Yeah, any reactions on this particular change, John?
Yeah, this is absolutely needed. I think this is 100% justified with what that move did. You should not have an EX reversal that gives you that much damage off of it. And yeah, I'm so happy to see this one among the other ones as well. And getting into the next one, actually,
there's still more to it, because there's after successfully catching an opponent's attack with this move, JP's super gauge will now not increase until either the generated projectile is gone or until the current combo ends, which means you're not going to be able to build into level 3 with combos there. The drive gauge increase for drive parrying or perfect parrying, the overdrive version of this move, has been changed from 2500 times 2 to 5000 times 2. What that means is you're going to get more drive gauge increase if you parry the exploding projectiles here. So I really do hope that it was as bad as you guys say it was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're going to see if all the JPs disappear and actually go to other characters, and we'll actually have some character variety, which would be nice, but we'll get into that later. So also his crouching heavy punch, is now worse and shouldn't completely dominate jump and attacks. That freaking move. So going from JP and going to other characters where I actually have to time my anti-airs and actually have to think about them, JP now actually has to do the same thing, because he does not have mid-air invincibility on his crouching heavy punch. What is that? That is normally reserved for special special moves and other things like that, and they give it to JP as his crouching heavy punch normal. So guess what? You and other JP players actually have to think about your anti-airs now. You can't just mindlessly mash your head into the joystick and get the best anti-air in the game.
That's what was happening. No one was talking about crouching heavy punch being overpowered. It's a crouching. You were talking about standing heavy punch. Maybe you said crouching heavy punch.
I'm about to get into
this. Was not something that was making the rounds on social media, as far as I saw and whatnot. People weren't complaining about this. He is a zoning character. He does not have a special move that beats jump-ins. He has to do crouching heavy punch. It's a heavy punch, by the way, the heavy punch startup. And for some reason, his anti-air needs to be nerfed. By the way, it doesn't beat cross-ups the way a lot of other anti-air moves that are faster beat cross-ups. Like, there's plenty to beat this move with.
JP finally has something that doesn't do everything for him. He has to play like the other characters in the game now. Instead of having every bit of privilege, J privilege, he is now closer in line, and he's not even close like to some of the other bottom tier characters or anything like that. He's still great. This is still a great character. He just does not have everything now.
We'll see if he's a great character. Because when you have the likes of like Nemo and Ryusei and Kakeru all playing, and they're all with JP, with like, there's so many JPs in the LCQ, and none of them can win. It's like, well, that tells me something too. There's so many JPs out there. It's like, yeah, he's a popular character. People are attracted to him. Is he winning? Nah, he did early on. People figured out there were answers to his stuff, and already we're getting into that conversation. Okay, how else has JP been appropriately nerfed?
So standing heavy punch is really a big deal. That's his best normal in the game. And it now has a larger
best normal.
No, I said it's his best normal.
Oh, his best normal in the game. Okay,
his best normal. So it now has a larger hurt box during the active frames, which is going to make this move even easier to whiff punish. And the characters who struggle to find situations where they could not consistently counter it now should have an easier time. So there's a handful of characters where he's just swinging that cane around and whatnot, and they're not able to get into because maybe their drive rush, maybe their normals are not that great with dealing with it. Now they should have a few more options available to them.
Yep, now he's more whiff punishable and more interruptible to get this, low forwards, because those weren't already too strong in this game. But I'm just playing. Yeah, standing heavy punch is not as good. You can hit it either in the recovery or and it's got an extended hurt box down at his feet. So and I do remember you specifically talking about that move more for its utility on offense, but I've also heard you say that it's not it's a really strong footsie tool. Well, they nerfed its footsie viability here in two different very notable ways. So let me ask you, how far does this knock JP down? Does it knock him from like first place down to still in first place but a little bit closer to second, or what does this do to the character in your opinion?
Well, I've had JP at second. I've never had him at first. I've thought about putting him there. He's probably around like, third or fourth, fifth, somewhere around there right now. He's still really dominant. And the other thing we haven't hit yet is his traps got a little bit of a damage scaling nerf as well.
Wait, how do you know he's still really dominant?
Well, he's got everything. I played this character at a high level.
But he's got everything.
He's got everything. This guy still has everything in the game that you could possibly want. He's still great. It's not like he's bad kind of thing. So I played this character too. I understand. I played him at just a high level as you did. So yes. This guy has got everything still. So he's
except
not
for all this stuff.
Well, what they just took away from him, right? But okay, so where do you think he's going to end up at?
Oh, I think JP was around. I know I put him back up into third place the last time we did a tier chart, but I'm thinking he was closer to around fourth or so, especially after watching Capcom Cup. I think this will knock him down to like where Ken is, like around seventh or so. Especially, it's going to depend. It's going to depend on some of the other changes that roll through. But I think it was 801 Strider, not even a JP player. A Marissa player, and here she has a hard time with JP. It's like, why are they attending to things like his anti-air? That didn't need to be attended to. People were really worried about Amnesia because they didn't do their homework. Fair enough. They hit that hardcore, and they nerfed his ability to defend people, which was already where his main weakness was, and now his neutral's worse, which people say his neutral was way too good before. Well, it's not there anymore. So we'll see how things change up. But yeah, I think that you're not seeing JP win now. You're extra not going to see him win. And I think what this is going to do is going to take it from, you're not seeing 7 JPs in the top 32, top 64. That number will wane. But I would put him around probably 7th or so. He's in between the top 5 and 10 at this point.
I said before, I'll say again, that crouching heavy punch nerf for his anti-air is absolutely, completely, and totally deserved. Go play some other characters and see how their anti-airs is, and compare it to JP. His was insane. And it had invincibility to mid-air jumping attacks. What? That's a special property. That's not a normal property. But moving on here, we got Luke next. His crouching medium punch now has 3 more frames of recovery on whiff, which is actually huge. It's going to be leading to that move being spammed a lot less. We saw this in Street Fighter V, where when they added more recovery onto whiff moves, it definitely made a difference. But this move is still incredible. It's still one of the best normals in the game. Might even be the best normal in the game. The hurt boxes on it are also a little bit larger, so I'm really happy with this. But this feels to me much more like a slap on the wrist for Luke compared to what like JP got.
I would agree. Now, this is probably the most talked about single move when it comes to the nerf discussion, and they did attend to it. And I do like this specifically because, like we said earlier, this isn't a global change. This isn't their yearly balance update. This is something that they decided, there's enough need for a change here that we're going to implement it in the just after Capcom Cup. Not a bad time, right? Because the big competitive season just ended. We can test this out for a while, and it might get hit even more in the future. I like this approach. I think they should have done something closer to this with JP and see, okay, this is testing time, not let's just make sure that we take away one of his legs. But,
Yeah. Also, his aerial flash knuckle in his level 1 also saw some minor nerfs there. Nothing that is... I still think Luke is got a case for being the best character in the game. I think him and Ken are number 1 and number 2. How do you feel like this is going to impact Luke?
So this directly touches him in the neutral. It doesn't do much when you talk about his up close and personal stuff, which is where a lot of Luke's advantages come from. It's like he gets that initial hit, and this is nerfing that. So that's nice because it's nerfing when the party gets started. But he still, as far as we can tell here, has the corner carry, damage output. He's got the rush down. So he's very, very still intact. It's just that it's a little bit harder for him to get that started, and he has to use his head a little bit more with crouching medium punch, which is, like I say, the direction I do think we should go in with him. And then the aerial flash knuckle changes, I think this is mainly to stop him from using the aerial flash knuckle as a way of getting out of the corner and kind of cheesing his way out there. If he does that now, you can probably follow up more consistently with a drive rush and punish him for doing that. So I like that. I think absolutely more needs to be done with Luke, but in this testing time, good. Let's see how this feels, because I don't think that many characters need a whole lot of changes, especially when it comes to nerfs. I think you can go not even crazy. You can give a lot of characters a sprinkling of buffs and see how that goes. And I'd like to have seen more of that right now. Give a few frames here and there to the characters like Lily and stuff. But this will be an interesting testing period for Luke.
So do you think Luke's tier position moves at all with this move, or do you think he's still the same?
I think it nerfed him. Does he fall below another character for this? Probably not. Probably not, because as good as crouching medium punch was, it was by no means the whole enchilada for Luke. It was one key component, and it's not like it's been removed. He's just got to thread the needle slightly more. 3 frames of recovery.
Luke players have to slightly think a little bit. So moving on, we have Ken. And if Luke got a slap on the wrist, Ken got like a really light tap on the wrist, because all they did to him is made his throw loop slightly harder to do. He can still do them from all reports that we're seeing. They're just a little harder to do, and that's pretty much it. And Ken, there's a case. He's the number 1 character in the game. Shouts to Phenom, who got eliminated by a Ken player. Shouts to Irony there, because Ken's not that great. But I lost to a Ken player. Oh, okay. So anyway, what do you think about Ken?
So the throw loop is technically gone, in that when Ken threw you in the corner, he would stay close enough that he could do a threat with another throw, which have 5 frames of startup in this game. Now, when he throws you in the corner, it's the same idea, but there is more physical space between you and Ken, so much so that in order to threaten with another throw, he has to dash first. Now, if Ken throws you and dashes, he's still +1. He's still at advantage here, and you still have to hold a mix-up, but he's not +2, which means that if he goes for the throw now, after having dashed after a throw, essentially goes to loop it, if you do a 4-frame, which is the fastest normal in the game, 4-frame normal, you will beat his throw. That's a big deal, in that now the mix-ups that he has in the corner are not quite as strong. You don't have to worry quite as much, and really you're not worried about the throw, you're just worried that if he can throw you, you defend against that, you're wrong, and he gets a full combo is the main thing there. That's going to happen a little bit less, which is going to hurt Ken a little bit. But similar to Luke, this doesn't really mess with his ability to play neutral really effectively, take you to the corner upon hitting you. And Ken and Luke's strengths really work in how they have really good stuff that feeds into more really good stuff. A character like Lily has really good stuff, but she does her thing, cashes out, you're back to neutral, and now she's got to find that hit again, and she's got to stock up a win stock again. Ken hits you with something, and it leads into another situation where he can hit you again into another one, and by that time you're dead. So now he's still going to be able to hit you fairly easily in the neutral. He's got a lot of maneuvers and a lot of pounce potential. He can still take you right to the corner, but now when you're in the corner, he doesn't have quite as much pressure. And that's something. So we'll see how that plays out. But is this going to break the character? No, not at all. And you compare, I think this is somewhat similar to Luke. They hit Luke on the way in. They've hit Ken once he gets you to the corner. And I like that. With JP, going back to the big three, they hit him in the amnesia, they hit him in the neutral, and they also hit him with his departure stuff. It's like, why'd you hit the other two of the top three in just one avenue?
Yeah.
And then you hit this other one in like 3.
I could not agree more that Ken and Luke got off really easy here, extremely easy, especially after all the matches that we saw at Capcom Cup. It's a bit disappointing here that they didn't go in harder enough, because I'm Ken and Luke are just as big a problems as JP was. So it's like, okay, all right, Capcom, so there it is.
I would say Luke was a much bigger problem. How many Lukes did we have in Capcom
It was
Cup?
awful.
How much was it Luke versus Ken or Luke versus Luke? It's like, I don't know. It's not like Luke doesn't get his amount of hate, but like what we're talking about here in the context of what do the patch notes reflect? It's like, those are the characters you need to go after, man.
Yeah. So moving on here, Dee Jay, his funky slicer, which is his light kick follow up on his sway, it's already -2 and 3 on block. It just pushes back a little bit less. So it's a little safe on block, a little easier to take your turn. He can't frame trap you and stuff like that by being outside of your range if you try to punish it and stuff. It also has a larger hurt box on it. I don't think that's going to matter too much. This is really like a very small slap on the wrist for Dee Jay. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, Dee Jay, I would say, is a secret top 3, even before this patch. And now if this is indicative of the direction Capcom wants to go, it's like, I think that Luke, JP, and Ken will continue to get nerfed. I don't know that Dee Jay will, and he's one of the candidates along with Jury, although she's obviously in center stage spotlight right now, having earned Uma $1 million. But I think those are the kind of characters that are set to pounce into the first place area. I think this character is really good. I think he could do with a few nerfs or maybe even just changes around. But Capcom's not doing much to him here. I think what this effectively does is it makes it so there's less opportunity for him to set up like I'm negative, but I'm at a distance that makes it so that when you go for your punish, you miss, and I get to punish you in those sort of trappy things that we saw a ton of in Street Fighter V. And I like that there's less potential for that now. But this isn't going to do a lot in the way of changing Dee Jay. And as the others get nerfed around him, he's ready to start climbing up that ladder.
Yeah, I think they're going to get some damage nerfs on him. For most of the Dee Jay players I've been talking to, that seems to be the thing, is like he just does way too much damage for what he's doing.
Really does.
So I think he's going to get that in the next patch, but we'll see. And then lastly here, we've got Chun-Li. Her air lightning legs saw a minor damage nerf. They scale a little bit more now. It's pretty circumstantial, like a situation, very situational, I should say. And probably not going to alter her pretty much at all. It's a very, very light slap on the wrist for her.
100 lightning kicks? Did they accidentally meld her lightning move with a 100 hand slap, which has traditionally been a very similar move with a very similar input? That's interesting. Yeah, that's been a very frustrating thing to get hit by. It's nothing like Season 1 of Street Fighter V, where that move was bonkers, and they changed that right quick. It's kind of funny that it came back in Season 1 of Street Fighter 6 as one of the things that was most prominent, apparently, about Chun-Li. But that's when you're on Wake Up, and she's baiting out a throw from you and goes into the lightning legs, and she doesn't get as much benefit from that. Fine, I'm good, because I hated that happening to me. I don't know if it was necessarily something broken or needed attention. At the same time, I couldn't tell you exactly where you need to start in on Chun, because she's kind of crazy and stuck in this weird place where she's really good but she's not, and what do you need to do? So seeing something like this, I'm all for it. I mean, maybe Chun-Li players might be a little bit upset at that, but I don't think anyone's going to lose their mind over it. So, and that's appropriate for where we're at right now with this game. Although I will say, if she were getting buffs right now, I'd be terrified.
Oh yeah, that would be not a good idea. All right, moving on to the winners here. This is something you and I were testing out the Capcom Cup floor. We'll start with Jamie. He can get a drink after performing his forward throw, and in the corner, that's at advantage after doing so from our initial test anyway. So that's very good for him.
I put that down as he's got a plus 34 frame buff on drinks from forward throw, because if you did it traditionally off of forward throw, you were like negative 27, and now if you do it, you're plus 7. And if you're close enough to the corner, that means you can get some pressure in on there, and you've gotten a drink. I think this is a huge deal for Jamie. I don't know for sure, because I see a lot of people playing the character even now where they're not even going for drinks. They're not taking their advantages. They'd rather go for the immediate pressure, even though you get more damage and stuff after drinks. They want the payout now as opposed to building up drinks. This is one more way that you're going to be able to get drinks. He might need one more. I don't know. But this is going to be something for him for sure.
Yeah. And then his level 1 does more damage now, and he gets a bit more Okuzemi pressure with it, with an additional 5 frames to work with, that the opponent is down for, that he has a time to act with. So the drink stuff is really the big deal. As you said, a lot of Jamie players weren't even going for it just to get that Okuzemi pressure. Well, now he's getting both in the form of a couple buffs here where he gets Oki and drinks. So I don't think this is going to change Jamie's fortunes. I don't think he's going to shoot up the tier list or anything with this, but it's like, hey, maybe he goes up a spot or two, maybe a little bit more than that. It's definitely very nice for Jamie players, but I don't see it being a big impact.
Yeah, I love that this is the level of change, again, that we should be using in these sort of test periods. Like, give him a little something and see what that does for him. Not these drastic sweeping changes. It's not the end of the year. It's just a little something. And by the way, one other thing that I don't know why it didn't start this way, but his level 2 is an install where his level 2 is where he is immediately at level 4 with his drinks for a certain amount of time. But here's the thing, if you were at like say 2 or 3 or 4 drinks and you activated level 2, when that timer ran out, it took all of your previous drinks away. You'd start back at 0. And for a character like this, like, that's just so silly. I mean, at least in retrospect, seeing how he functions now, that doesn't happen anymore. Now, if you went into level 2 with 2 drinks, you come out of level 2 with 2 drinks, and that's really nice to see. I think that's very appropriate for Jamie. So, yeah, nice little quality of life there.
Yeah, keep your drinks. So next up, we've got Aki, my main. Her crouching light punch had its range improved, and this is her best button overall. And so some situations, like against certain characters, she had a really heck of a time like punishing them. And so now she's able to punish them where she would be spaced out. Some of her combos are a little bit different. So that's very nice for her. Her standing medium punch was one of her best buttons. Also got the active frames increased by a couple, which gives her a safer pressure tool and a little bit of an ability to create more Okuzemi situations. So Aki definitely got better in this patch, but it shouldn't be a dramatic change in her rankings, just like a modest improvement, just a very solid one. When you take 2 of her best buttons and you buff those, that is definitely going to add up for her. So I really like the changes that they made for the character, and I'm really excited to put them in the lab even more.
You were talking about the potential for Aki to have more cancelable normals, right?
Yeah.
And that would be a really big buff, I think, compared to this. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
And so, again, I like the approach here, where it's a little something, see what it does for you, and then we'll talk again in a few months when we do the big change. I like it.
So next up, we've got Zangief. Being able to combo into his level 3 from his OD Lariat is really nice. Plus, Capcom expanded the hitbox on his level 1 to make it whiff less often. There's a bunch of clips online of Zangief, doing his anti-air level 1 and just having a whiff. So seeing that they directly attended to that to try to make him a little bit better in that regard is very good. There's no sign of the OD Lariat being better against cross-ups, which we've definitely talked about with this character. That maybe that's fair for this guy to have. I still wonder if that might be a season 2 balance change that we get.
They don't want it. It looks like they just don't want to do that, is what I would think. This would be the place to put something like that in. And they did so much to Lariat here. There's 5 subnotes under his change here, but none of them are make it hit behind.
Yeah, so to me, this is definitely this doesn't change Zangief's fortunes pretty much at all. It's like, here's 2 quality of life buffs for you, and be happy with that, is how I see it.
Yeah, well, it doesn't change his utility a ton. It's like once he's already got the damage going, he can do a little bit more with it, like, but it feels like the changes to double lariat is like when you're using it in a combo, it's better, and I think that's good. And then when you're using super 1 in a combo, it's better. Or maybe just like if you're using it as an anti-air, but either way, it's not like Zangief can get in and be at advantage more consistently or has a way of positioning himself where he needs to be. And that's really scary with grapplers because those kinds of changes will move the needle in huge, sometimes unexpected amounts of change. So yeah, it's a few quality of life. It's like you're going to change the numbers kind of in the output of his damage, which is also a little bit scary, but it's better than you making him, giving him more utility. And so, yeah, I think Zangief is really good and is still on the brink. Like, although he's not like one of the best characters in the game, he's still right there as he almost always is on, yeah, but if you just give him this, Snake Eyes is going to win everything always, no matter what, you know? And so you're like, how do I balance around things like that? It's rough. So I don't hate seeing this. And another thing, like a character that's as low as Zangief relatively is on the tier list, or at least perceived to be, you can give him little bits, and see him kind of rise. You don't want any huge jumps. And so this feels appropriate.
So the last character I got for winners here is Ryu. His big problem is still that Luke and Ken exist and are far better characters. So I mean, you can play Ryu, but why not play someone else? Basically, his fireball changes. Like there's a lesser hurt box on them, which is hey, that's good. And then his charge fireball has got some better properties and stuff to it. But it's like, to me, I look over this, people are really excited about it. Capcom specifically highlights Ryu and Jamie as being like, the characters they were trying to attend to. I personally look at this and go, okay, sure, but like we got Akuma on the horizon, Luke and Ken exist. Like, to me, this is like for the three people who main Ryu in this game, sure, but for the rest of the people, I'm like, I don't really see it being much for him. How about you?
So this is another one of those characters that they wanted to move on the tier list. They didn't necessarily want to just like fix some quality of life issues and make them more fun or just easier to do what you want to do with without necessarily moving them. They gave Ryu some stuff in a couple of different avenues, and I think they wanted to move Jamie, they wanted to move JP, and they wanted to move Ryu. The other characters, they just wanted to like change a little bit. But he's got the solar plexus triggers block from farther away, which means he's got better neutral control using the solar plexus. You can't back out of its range as easily. You're going to start blocking and get locked down because of it more often now. His light Hashogeki has, all of his Hashogekis have been improved in some way, but it basically can now be used for pressure, especially in the corner, with just that one more frame that it has. But like we saw with Ken, that was the difference between Ken having all the utility of a throw loop or not. And now we've given light Hashogeki one more frame, and I believe that puts him at +2 in scenarios where he used to be +1, and +2 is where the throw versus the strike situation is at its peak. So that's going to be better for Ryu, and in some ways it's like he doesn't necessarily have the corner carry, but he has the neutral control, and he can get you to the corner, and if he can get you to the corner, he's got a little bit more efficiency when he's there. So he's got a little more efficiency in the neutral. He's got a little more efficiency when he's pressuring you, especially in the corner. And now he's a little bit better at absorbing fireballs with the Hashogeki, so that's going to attend again to his neutral and to the projectile wars. So they've given Ryu a little bit of something in a couple of different avenues, and while they might not pour into one another quite as obviously or as effectively as the likes of Luke's or Ken, they do connect to one another, and this does round out Ryu on a couple of different rough edges in a little bit. So we'll see what happens here, and it might be that the allure of Ryu or of Ken and Luke are there, and what are we, like a couple months away from Akuma at this point? The whole why play this Shoto versus the others is still something, but this will do something for Ryu. But without Luke and Ken losing most of their stuff, I don't see a mass exodus from either of those characters to go to this one.
Yeah. So following up here, we also had some system mechanic changes for the game. Some odd behaviors with armored moves, drive rush, and perfect parries got fixed, but they're basically just bug fixes here. They're not overall systemic changes. They're just like, hey, sometimes these moves behave a little bit weird, and they're fixed now. So we'll see if that means anything at all. But there it is. So John, let's get into Ed here. You and I got some hands-on time with the character already. What are you thinking of him so far?
So Ed is interesting. He has some very obviously strong tools, and as I was playing him, we got to play him on pad, not on stick, and for me that's like playing in another language almost. I could get some of the very basics, but I'm not doing drive rush combos with effectiveness and being able to calculate on that level. So just let me preface it with that. But what I could see right off the bat was that Ed has clear tools from far away in his ability to do the absorption and then sending out a projectile. You're not going to sit there and start projectile wars with Ed. I don't think he's not meant to do that, but he's meant to be able to contend by throwing that reversal projectile, and that's something. But where he wants to be the most is at about a medium distance, where his standing medium punch, which basically punches at your ankles, it's not a low, but it's got crazy reach. I feel like it's a Dalsum normal, but with the speed of a regular normal, and it can be drive rush canceled. So Ed's threat from around the range where standing medium punch just hits is going to be crazy. Can he get you to whiff buttons and be open at that distance? That's going to be something that remains to be seen with the rest of his kit. But if he can, that game is going to be super interesting. You will not feel comfortable up in front of Luke, and then just a little further away from that, he's playing Spider-Man's webbing with you as he's playing the game where he's going to try to charge up and hit you with his, is it Psycho Snatcher, where he pulls you in and now he's got like advantage or just situations that he wants to be in. So it's going to be rough playing against Ed from just like at sweep range to about jump range. That's where he seems to want to be. When he's close to you, he's got the damage output, he's got the kinds of pressure and such. He just wants to be there when he's on offense and not really when he's not on offense. I don't think he wants to be close to you outside of when it's on his terms. He's going to be somewhat weak when he's up close. Not that he doesn't have a reversal DP, but that's a slow one. It can be baited, and that can be his ass instead of yours. So right off the bat, he seems to be strong from medium distance. He's probably going to have a pretty strong pounce factor. His control of the neutral is going to be his strongest thing, especially when you pepper in his Super 2, which is a slow-moving fireball, a la Rashid's Tornado or Dalsum's Fireball. He's definitely got some juice, and if I were to predict it now, I'd say he's a runner for top 5, in the running for top 5.
So I don't have him up as far as top 5. I've got him more top 10. But he does seem like he's very good at the things that are strong in Street Fighter 6's meta, like pushing people to the corner and drive rush setups. I think are going to be quite good for him off those special cancelable normals you were talking about. You compared him to like Dalsum like limbs that cancel. Now definitely not the same range and utility as Dalsum's limbs, but a lot of range for a character that can cancel those normals. So that's really good for him. You already talked about him being a whiff punish monster. I completely agree. The biggest thing I would highlight for Ed that I think is a really strong aspect of him is his mobility is very strong. He's got a command dash that can go back or forward. His moves just really lend themselves to that. He is a very mobile boxer character, and with the way that Ed can typically dish out the damage, I think he's going to be a pretty darn good character to mess people up with and push them to the corner and get a lot of damage and stuff out of it. But where I think he's going to fall apart is what you touched on earlier before, is I think his DP is a good bit worse than it was in Street Fighter 5, and it was not all that great in Street Fighter 5 either. So he's going to really struggle when he loses momentum in matchups and then basically can't get it back. So he's got to control the match. He can't overcommit, but if he can get other people to overcommit, as you're talking about that whiff punish game of his, ooh, so good. So good. So very mid-rangey. He's got some options to get in with his Psycho Knuckle, all this other kind of stuff. And as you touched on before, his Fireball has a very long startup on it, and so I think characters like Guile are going to give him a lot of trouble if he ever tries to do any kind of Fireball wars against those characters. He can do it in patches. He can do it like, hey, let me negate this Fireball, let me shoot one back at you. Sure, he can do that, but like when Guile's really sitting there chucking booms and stuff, I think Ed is really going to fall apart and have a lot of trouble with that.
Yeah, I don't think you should think of him as a Fireball character. I think that's just there as the way he deals with fireballs has a fireball animation in it. I would think about it more like that. And there might be some, combos or situations where you get that out too. But so on paper, he has the tools to excel in some pretty good places that you would want to excel when it comes to Street Fighter 6. But what it's really going to come down to is how effective are each of those tools in the context of when he's fighting other characters. How much utility is he actually going to get out of them? Are his command dashes going to be super useful, or we're going to find that they just don't really fit into anywhere? And I don't suspect that's going to be the case. I think Capcom thinks about these things quite in quite great detail and make sure to implement them as such. But it could also be that none of his stuff works together, and where he's good doesn't really matter all that much in this game, and the characters that can just pounce through his zoning and his space control will just obliterate him and he becomes an afterthought and he's a bottom fiver. That could happen too. It's really going to come down to, let's see how this all works once it's in players' hands.
Yeah. I really like him as a new DLC character. I don't think he's going to be a flop. I think he's going to be an impactful character for this next season. Aki was pretty much a negative impact. Like almost no one played her. There's a handful of people who played her at a high level. I think Ed is going to be better than that. I think Ed is definitely going to have more of an impact than Aki did.
I agree. I could see. I don't see Luke levels of Ed play right now, but I could see a bracket with a couple of Eds as a regularly occurring character in competitive tournaments and such. I could see Ed popping up, but it's still too early to say something like that. He again, a lot of tools in the neutral, and Capcom knows what they're doing with a lot of this stuff. They've shown us that they do. And one last thing I would say is that I think Ed came out better than we expected him to. In the presentation, he does look a little bit sickly, but that's a pretty forgivable thing. But as far as making this character that was received widely as kind of boring and bland, they've updated him to make him a little more enticing than that. I'm interested to get in there and play around with Ed and see what he feels like in actual matches and in training mode and with a stick as opposed to a controller. I'm intrigued to do that in a way that I certainly wasn't with Street Fighter V, and I do think that he might become a regular presence in tournaments. So far so good with Ed, I think.
Right. So lastly, you and I were both at Capcom Cup 2023, just got back from there. We ran into a lot of fans of the show there. Thanks to everyone who came up and said hi to us and said, they love the show, love the site and stuff like that. That means a lot to us. It was really cool to have that. The event overall was pretty darn good, but there were some definite problems. And the biggest one I'm going to start with is they really need a new venue. There was one, they ran out of tickets extremely quickly. I was telling my friends and stuff like that, like, hey, if you actually want to go this year, you better order. And I saw a number of people online just like going, hey, I had no time to order, the tickets are already gone, all the other kind of stuff like that. Like, it should not sell out that fast. This is not the largest of venues. And then the seating there on Sunday, like, we had about 100 people standing around us during the finals because there was just no seats. And it's like, look, like, we're watching this tournament for 10 hours or something like that. You need to have ample seating, and it needs to have a good view of the screen, and just some of these details that just was not well thought out of. But how did it strike you?
So yes, you're absolutely right. There were some blunders. On the whole, I think Capcom Cup and the Capcom Pro Tour is growing in correct directions for the most part. They are learning lessons. And you could see that on the stage. The production was just fine. I heard that there were some issues for the stream where there were some hiccups there, but I didn't experience those directly, and so I can't really speak to those yet. But as far as the presentation up on the stage, everything was going well there. I remember I saw Alex Valle, directing traffic constantly, and that all seemed to go off pretty much without a hitch. The presentation seems to be just fine, but thinking about your audience is very clearly not there in some very important ways. Like you said, there was not enough seating, and this was a venue that didn't have any of its own. Well, there was some booths and such, and then I think there was seating up in the VIP, which was the top area. But down on the floor, it was just all standing room. They had to put down chairs, and I know chairs can be expensive to rent and whatnot, but this is a $2 million prize pool event. And to not have enough chairs for people, especially on finals day, that was distracting and annoying. And the fact that there were no casuals at this event, I'm sorry, FGC is not quite like a lot of others, and maybe you want to direct attention to what's going on the screen. People will pay attention to that, and then people will stop their casuals to watch. But the FGC, there's a huge portion of your audience that wants to be able to play the game, that's watching the game and gets the itch to play because they're seeing the competition. And to not have that for your audience I think is a failure for an FGC event. Anytime that happens anywhere, I think that's a failure. The casuals need to be a thing at events. Events need to be maybe a little bit more than just what's going on that stage. That's a huge part of it, and that's pretty much all there was at this event. There were a few booths. I remember the Bandits booth. You can go, you can go get a drink. You can go buy some merch. You can have one of those egg rolls that, oh my gosh, by the end of the weekend,
those egg rolls.
I'm good on egg rolls for a while, baby. They were bringing those out every so often, fresh ones. Yeah, they were. But yeah, there wasn't much to do outside of just watch what's on the screen. And sure, fair enough, that's what we're here for. But you should make it more of there should be more to do. So yeah, some black eyes there. I hope that gets better. I think they do need a bigger venue at this point. So there's that. But on the whole, I think it delivered what it was supposed to. You know, we got the highest level of Street Fighter action. We got some incredibly hype moments. We got to see some of the Capcom bigwigs walking around there. The community felt like it was this in-person event of the, you know, some of the highest caliber figures in our community were there, and that was really cool. So yeah, there is a certain prestige, there is a certain excitement, there is a certain entertainment, but hot damn, I think that in a nutshell, think about your attending audience a little bit more next time, Capcom.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight that Capcom USA staff is great there. They're always really nice, and whenever we have questions on other stuff, they're awesome. Level Up with Jimmy and Valle, of course, commentary was great. A lot of the stuff went off without a hitch, and not only without a hitch, but was really awesome. Like just top level, hey, this is great production value, this is wonderful. Just a few of the details we're talking about here. I will also mention that the character variety was really bad. You could hear people groan audibly over and over again when Luke was landing his crouching medium punches. It was like, there was, you know, I didn't count, but I'm pretty sure there was 5 million Luke mirrors in the Capcom Cup Finals. So it got a little bit tiresome seeing the same characters up there with Luke and Ken just pretty much all the time.
5,000,006.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Close.
So event overall was really good. I will note that the security staff there was, for the most part, the security staff was very professional and very kind. And I you know, it was like, hey, they're doing their jobs and stuff. But some of them seemed a little bit intense and overzealous. And so I really, again, it's another reason why they need a different venue next year. The location itself, the area that it was held at, is wonderful. There's tons of stuff to do around there. But let's get a different venue for 2025. But great event. I'm really happy I went to it. For the most part, was fantastic. Just a few of these details they need to attend to in the future.
Yeah, I think Capcom Cup is on its way to being a, what would you say, like a full, well-rounded event that they want it to be. But part of getting there in any venture is going through the steps. You know, it's making 100 videos on YouTube before you even expect to have any kind of success with your 101st. And we're going through that. And for the most part, Capcom is learning lessons. You can say what you want about, you know, the format of the tour this year, but hopefully they're listening. And hopefully next time we see improvement. I think that's the most we can ask for.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And history shows they do listen. It just takes them a year to nerf JP. So with that, guys, we're going to get out of here before John punches me in the face.
I'm going to go practice Ed.